I didn't think my life could shatter twice. The first time was 2 years ago when Amelia confessed to her affair. I had married her believing we shared something unbreakable, a connection deeper than promises and vows. 17 years of partnership, and it only took one night at a housewarming party to throw it all into question. She told me everything, or so I believed. It had been one night with a coworker, fueled by alcohol and bad decisions. She came home at 4 a.m., her makeup smeared, and the unmistakable scent of liquor clinging to her. That night, I lay awake, her confession slicing through my chest like shards of glass. But I forgave her. She had confessed voluntarily. She even quit her job to distance herself from the man. And we drafted a post-nup together, one that gave me a measure of security, a safety net against another betrayal. I believed it was enough to rebuild trust. But that belief was an illusion. Last month, a message popped up on my Facebook. It was from a woman I didn't know, a stranger named Lisa. Her message was curt and direct. Did you know about your wife and my husband? I stared at the screen, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dread. Her husband? I replied, trying to keep my composure. Yes, Amelia told me about the affair 2 years ago. It's in the past. The next message gutted me. It wasn't just one night. They were together for 5 months. I sat there, my hand frozen on the mouse, rereading Lisa's message until the words blurred. 5 months. Not a drunken mistake, not a single lapse in judgment, but 5 months of calculated deceit. I could feel the blood draining from my face as my mind spun. How could I have been so blind? I replied cautiously, "Are you sure about this?" Amelia told me it was one night, and she confessed voluntarily. Lisa didn't waste time sugarcoating. Her response came within seconds. I found texts and photos. It was physical. Over 10 times, according to his phone records. She only stopped seeing him when I threatened to go public. I didn't even realize I had risen from my chair until I felt the cold floor under my feet. The room spun as anger and humiliation surged through me. Amelia had lied. Even in her so-called confession, she'd painted herself as someone seeking redemption. But the truth? It was far uglier than I could have imagined. That weekend, I confronted her. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and the air felt heavier than usual. Amelia was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee, the picture of domestic calm. I felt like I was staring at a stranger. "Who is Lisa?" I asked abruptly, my voice cold and deliberate. Her head snapped up, and her eyes darted to mine, wide with confusion, or maybe guilt. "Lisa? John's wife." The color drained from her face. She placed the coffee cup down slowly, her fingers trembling. "Why are you bringing this up again?" "I spoke to her," I said, crossing my arms. "She told me everything. 5 months, Amelia. Not one night. Not a mistake. 5 months." Amelia's expression crumbled, her carefully composed mask falling apart. "David. I can explain." "No," I stepped back, the anger in my voice barely restrained. "I want the truth. All of it. No more half measures. No more lies." She swallowed hard, tears welling up in her eyes. "I didn't tell you the full truth because I was afraid you'd leave me. That wasn't your choice to make." I shouted, the words reverberating off the walls. "You took away my right to decide whether I wanted to stay with you after knowing the full story. You manipulated me into staying, Amelia." She broke down, sobbing into her hands, but it did little to soothe the storm inside me. The image of her sneaking around, lying to my face for months, played on a loop in my mind. The betrayal wasn't just about her actions, it was about her choices. She hadn't come clean out of remorse, she confessed out of fear. And even then, she'd only given me a fraction of the truth. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, her apologies bouncing off the walls like meaningless echoes. Every glance at her felt like a knife twisting in my gut. How had I been so blind? But the revelations didn't stop there. That night, unable to sleep, I dug into her old texts and emails, something I'd promised myself I'd never do again after her first confession. What I found made my blood run cold. Hidden in an old email account was a draft she'd never sent. It was dated 3 months into her affair with John. "I'm falling for you, John. This isn't just physical anymore. I don't know what to do. I love David, but I can't stop thinking about you. I hate lying to him, but I can't imagine ending this." I closed the laptop with trembling hands, the enormity of her betrayal sinking in. Amelia hadn't just broken my trust, she'd desecrated everything we'd built together. After reading the unsent email, my mind was a whirlwind of questions and anger. Was she in love with him? Was I just a convenient fallback? Every corner of my house, the walls, the furniture, even the wedding photos on the mantel, seemed to mock me. But the worst part was the doubt. If she had hidden this much, what else was I missing? I decided to dig further, into places I hadn't thought to check before. That night, while Amelia slept fitfully in the guest room, I powered up an old external hard drive she used to back up her phone years ago. It had been gathering dust in a storage box in our closet, and I wasn't even sure it would still work. As the files loaded, a stream of photos, videos, and messages filled the screen. Most of it was harmless, family pictures, vacation memories, but then I found a folder labeled Receipts. Inside was a treasure trove of guilt. Screenshots of text conversations with John, full of flirtation and double entendres. Photos of them together at locations I didn't recognize, restaurants, a secluded park, even what looked like a hotel room. And then, a video. My heart pounded as I hesitated. The file was dated 4 years ago, a year before her confession. I clicked it, my stomach churning. In the video, Amelia sat across from John at a candlelit table. They were laughing, her hand on his. She looked radiant. Happier than I'd seen her in years. The camera panned briefly to a waiter delivering a dessert with a sparkler on top. I heard John's voice, "Happy anniversary, babe." Anniversary. The weight of that word hit me like a sledgehammer. This wasn't just an affair, it was a parallel relationship. While I'd been planning our vacations, celebrating our milestones, she'd been doing the same with someone else. The next morning, I confronted her again. I tossed the drive onto the table between us, the weight of my discovery sinking into the room. "What's this?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Your second life," I replied coldly. "How long, Amelia? How long were you with him?" She didn't even try to deny it this time. "For years," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "On and off." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. 4 years. Nearly a quarter of our marriage. As I was processing this new betrayal, Lisa reached out again. This time, she wanted to meet in person. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Lisa was a sharp, no-nonsense woman with a quiet intensity that reminded me of someone walking a tightrope of their own emotions. "Thank you for coming," she said, clasping her hands around her coffee mug. "I thought you deserved to know everything." "What else is there to know?" I asked bitterly. Lisa hesitated before pulling out her phone. John kept a journal. A lot of it was encrypted, but I managed to crack part of it. And I found something about Amelia that I think you need to see. She handed me the phone, and I scrolled through the images of John's handwritten notes. One entry caught my eye immediately. Amelia says she wants to leave him, but she's scared. She keeps talking about their post-nup, worried it will ruin her financially. She says she can't imagine a life without me, but I told her we have to wait. The timing isn't right. My jaw clenched as I handed the phone back. She was planning to leave me? Lisa nodded. At least, that's what she told John. But then he refused to leave me, so I guess she stayed with you instead. The ground beneath me felt unsteady, as if the entire foundation of my life was crumbling. I thanked Lisa and left, her words echoing in my mind. Amelia hadn't stayed because of love or remorse, she'd stayed because she didn't have another choice. Back home, I confronted Amelia again, demanding to know if she had ever planned to leave me. Her reaction was telling, her face turned pale, and she stammered, unable to form a coherent response. But then, something strange happened. A few days later, Amelia began acting paranoid. She jumped every time her phone buzzed and started locking doors behind her. One night, I overheard her on the phone in the garage. "I told you, I'm handling it," she hissed. "If he finds out about the money, it's over. You shouldn't have contacted him in the first place." The money? I couldn't piece it together, but it was clear Amelia was hiding even more. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper with a typewritten note. "Ask your wife about the offshore account." The anonymous letter about the offshore account rattled me to my core. It was cryptic, but the implications were clear. Amelia was hiding something far bigger than an affair. That night, I stared at the letter for hours, turning it over in my hands, as though the thin paper could yield more answers. Was the sender trying to help me? Or was this a veiled threat? I decided to keep it to myself, at least for now. I needed more information before confronting Amelia again. The next day, while Amelia was out running errands, I searched our home with a fine-tooth comb, looking for anything that could explain the mysterious note. I checked drawers, filing cabinets, even the attic. Hours passed with no luck. Finally, I came across an old shoebox tucked away in the back of our closet. Inside was a mix of random keepsakes, old letters, ticket stubs, and a few financial documents. Among them was a small, unmarked USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the files. My breath hitched. The drive contained financial records for an account in the Cayman Islands. The balance was staggering, well into 6 figures. Transactions showed deposits that began 5 years ago, around the time Amelia's affair with John had started. My mind raced. Where had this money come from? It couldn't be her salary, she hadn't worked since quitting her job after her initial confession. And if she'd had this money during our post-nup discussions, she'd deliberately kept it hidden. But the worst part? There were withdrawals, 2 recent ones. Someone was still actively accessing the account. That evening, I tried to act normal, though every glance at Amelia set my teeth on edge. She was unusually quiet, sipping her wine and scrolling through her phone. Finally, I broke the silence. "Amelia, is there anything you want to tell me?" She looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" I shrugged, forcing a casual tone. "You've been acting strange lately. Locking doors, taking phone calls in the garage. If there's something going on, now's the time to come clean." Her expression shifted, fear flickered in her eyes before she quickly masked it. "You're being paranoid, David. I'm just stressed about everything that's happened recently." I didn't push further, not yet. But her reaction told me I was on the right track. 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of glass shattering. Heart pounding, I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed and crept downstairs. The house was eerily quiet, save for the faint rustle of movement in the living room. I flicked on the lights, and there he was, a man in his late 40s with a scruffy beard and a nervous energy about him, rifling through our shelves. "Who the hell are you?" I yelled, raising the bat. The man froze, his hands in the air. "Wait. Don't hit me, I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why are you breaking into my house?" He hesitated, glancing toward the stairs. I need to talk to Amelia. It's about the account. I swear, I didn't mean to scare you. The account. My grip on the bat tightened. What do you know about it? He shook his head. I can't talk to you. This is between me and her. Before I could press further, Amelia appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale and her eyes wide with panic. Liam, she whispered. The man nodded. Amelia, we need to talk. Now. Amelia's reaction spoke volumes, she knew him. And judging by her fear, their connection wasn't innocent. Go back to bed, David, she said quickly, trying to usher me away. Like hell I will, I shot back. Who is he, and what does he want? Liam cut in, his voice low but insistent. He deserves. The unease from the car in the driveway lingered well into the next day. Amelia refused to explain who they were, and every question I asked seemed to drive her deeper into herself. By afternoon, I was exhausted from the silence, the paranoia, the growing sense that I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. But the nightmare wasn't over. It was only getting started. That night, the house felt colder than usual, and the silence was oppressive. Amelia barely ate, her eyes darting toward the windows every few minutes. She flinched at every creak, every distant noise. I told myself I would get answers from her, one way or another. I had just started up the stairs when I heard a crash from the living room. My heart leapt into my throat. Stay here, I whispered to Amelia, grabbing the baseball bat I kept by the stairs. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. David, don't. I shook her off and crept downstairs, my grip on the bat so tight my knuckles turned white. The living room light was off, but the faint glow of the street lamp outside cast enough light to see the shattered glass on the floor. And then I saw him. A man, late 40s, scruffy and nervous, was rifling through the bookshelf. He froze when I stepped into the room, the bat raised high. Who the hell are you? I barked. He turned slowly, his hands raised in surrender. Wait. I'm not here to hurt you. Then why are you breaking into my house? The man glanced toward the stairs. I need to talk to Amelia. It's about the money. The mention of the money sent a chill through me. My grip on the bat tightened. You have 5 seconds to explain yourself before I call the police. Before he could answer, I heard Amelia's voice from the top of the stairs. Liam? She knew him. Of course, she knew him. The man, Liam, lowered his hands, looking relieved. Amelia, thank God. I've been trying to get in touch with you. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice trembling. Liam ignored me entirely, his focus on her. It's not safe. They know about the withdrawals. If they think you've gone rogue. Who's they? I interrupted, stepping between him and Amelia. Start talking, now. Liam hesitated, his eyes darting between us. She didn't tell you, did she? Tell me what? Amelia's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Liam, stop. He ignored her. David, your wife isn't who you think she is. That money? It's blood money. She's been laundering it for years. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Laundering, what are you talking about? Liam opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything else, Amelia shoved past me and grabbed him by the arm. You need to leave. Now. No, I said firmly, my voice shaking with anger. Not until I get some answers. Amelia spun around, her face pale and desperate. David, please. Let him go. No. I roared, slamming the bat against the wall. The sound echoed through the room, startling both of them. You're going to tell me everything, Amelia. Now. The next words out of her mouth changed everything. It's not my money, David. It's theirs. Theirs? I repeated, my voice a whisper. The people I was working for, she said, her voice trembling. The account, it was never mine. I was just moving it for them. I didn't have a choice. What kind of people? I demanded. Liam answered for her, his voice grim. Dangerous people. People who don't like loose ends. As the weight of their words settled over me, a new fear took root. This wasn't just about an affair or hidden money anymore. This was about something much darker, something that could destroy us both. Amelia grabbed my arm, her grip frantic. David, please. We have to leave. Tonight. But before I could respond, the sound of tires crunching on gravel filled the air. My stomach dropped. They're here, Liam whispered, his face pale. The three of us froze as headlights washed over the living room windows, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. This time, I knew the nightmare was far from over. The headlights outside burned through the thin curtains, casting long shadows of our frozen figures against the wall. My heart pounded as the black car idled silently, like a predator assessing its prey. David, don't move, Amelia whispered, clutching my arm with a desperation that sent chills down my spine. Liam was less composed. We're sitting ducks if they come in here. We need to. He was cut off by the car door opening. A tall figure emerged, silhouetted by the harsh beam of the headlights. The person stood motionless for a moment, then slowly began walking toward the house. I grabbed the bat again, my hands trembling. Who are they? I hissed. Amelia shook her head. David, you don't want to know. Trust me. I don't have the luxury of trust right now, I snapped, my eyes darting between her and the approaching figure. How much worse can this possibly get? Liam's panicked whisper cut through the tension. You're about to find out. The figure stopped just short of the broken window. In the silence, I could hear the crunch of glass under their boots. They lifted a hand and knocked lightly on the door, an almost polite gesture, chilling in its contrast to the tension in the room. Amelia, a calm voice called out. We need to talk. She gasped, her face going pale. David, don't answer it. Please. I ignored her, stepping toward the door with the bat raised. Who are you? I demanded, my voice cracking slightly. What do you want? The voice responded, still calm, almost amused. I'm not here for you, David. But you should put the bat down. It's not going to help you. I gritted my teeth, my grip tightening. I'm not opening this door until I get some answers. Amelia bolted to the door, her movements frantic. She pressed her palms flat against it, as if her sheer will could keep the danger out. No. You can't come in here. I just need more time. Time, the voice repeated, now with an edge of steel. Amelia, you're out of time. Open the door, or we'll do it for you. My head was spinning. None of this made sense. Amelia, my wife of 17 years, was cowering like a cornered animal, begging for mercy from someone she clearly feared more than anything. What did you do? I whispered, my voice trembling. Tears streamed down her face. David, I never wanted you involved. Please, just let me handle this. Handle it? I shouted, gesturing toward the broken glass and the menacing figure outside. What part of this looks like it's under control? Before she could answer, Liam grabbed my arm. David, we need to move. Now. Where? I snapped, glaring at him. The back door, he said, already pulling me toward the kitchen. We're not staying here to find out what happens next. Before we could take 2 steps, the front door exploded inward with a deafening crash. The figure strode in, flanked by 2 others, all dressed in black. They moved with eerie precision, their faces obscured by shadows. Amelia screamed, stumbling backward as one of the intruders raised a hand to silence her. "Enough," the leader said, his voice sharp and commanding. "No one is leaving until we settle this." I positioned myself between Amelia and the intruders, the bat trembling in my hands. "Stay back!" I shouted, though my voice betrayed my fear. The leader chuckled, a low, mocking sound. "Brave. Stupid, but brave. Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He ignored me, turning his gaze to Amelia. "You've made this mess, Amelia. It's time to clean it up." Amelia fell to her knees, sobbing. "I'll fix it. I swear. Just give me more time." The leader crouched in front of her, his tone almost gentle now. "Time's up, Amelia. You've been skimming off the top. Did you think we wouldn't notice?" Skimming. My stomach dropped. She hadn't just been laundering money, she'd been stealing it. The leader glanced at me, his piercing eyes seeming to assess me in an instant. "Does he know?" "No," Amelia sobbed. "He doesn't know anything. Please, don't hurt him." "Doesn't matter," the leader said coldly. "Loose ends are loose ends." Before I could react, one of the other intruders stepped forward and snatched the bat from my hands, tossing it across the room like a toy. "You don't have to do this," Amelia begged, clutching the leader's arm. He shook her off. "I warned you, Amelia. You can't betray people like us and expect to walk away." My mind raced as I tried to make sense of the chaos. "What do you want?" I shouted. The leader turned to me, a smirk playing on his lips. "Simple. Amelia pays back what she stole." Or, he trailed off, his meaning clear. I couldn't let this happen. Amelia's betrayal was overwhelming, but the thought of these men killing her, or me, was unthinkable. "Wait," I said, raising my hands. "There's got to be another way. Just tell me how much she owes, and we'll figure it out." The leader laughed, a cold, joyless sound. "It doesn't work like that, David." One of his men stepped forward, pulling a gun from his waistband. Amelia screamed. I lunged forward, instinct taking over. I didn't know what I was doing, only that I had to stop them. The room erupted into chaos. The room exploded into chaos the moment the gun was drawn. I lunged forward without thinking, adrenaline overriding logic, and slammed into the man holding the weapon. The impact sent both of us sprawling onto the floor. The gun clattered away, skidding across the wooden surface. "David!" Amelia screamed, her voice cracking with panic. I scrambled to my knees, barely dodging a vicious kick from another intruder. Liam dove into the fray, tackling the third man, who stumbled but managed to keep his balance. The leader, calm as ever, remained still. His cold, calculating eyes followed every move, like a predator studying its prey. "Enough," he barked. His voice carried such authority that everyone froze, even the man I had just tackled. Amelia bolted to her feet, her hands trembling as she clutched at the edge of the table for support. "Please, I'll fix this. I just need more time." The leader turned his gaze to her, and for a moment, a flicker of disdain crossed his face. "Time's not something you have, Amelia." He walked slowly toward her, his movements deliberate and menacing. "Do you know what happens to people who try to outsmart us? People who think they can steal from us and get away with it?" Amelia shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. "I wasn't stealing. I swear, I just—" "Shut up," he snapped, cutting her off. I couldn't stand by any longer. My body moved before my brain could catch up, and I placed myself between the leader and Amelia. "Back off," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "Whatever this is, take it up with me." The leader smiled, a chilling, predatory smile. "David, isn't it? You're brave. I'll give you that." He leaned in close, so close I could feel his breath. But you're out of your depth. I didn't flinch, though my insides were screaming. You want your money? Fine. Take it. Just leave us alone. The leader straightened, laughing softly. It's not that simple. She crossed a line. A very expensive line. Amelia sobbed behind me. Please, don't do this. I'll pay it back. Every cent. The leader tilted his head, feigning thoughtfulness. Maybe you will. But we can't let this slide without consequences. If we did, people might start to think we're forgiving. He gestured to one of his men, who retrieved the fallen gun. The sight of the weapon sent a fresh wave of panic through me. No, I said, stepping forward. You don't need to do this. The leader looked at me, amused. And what exactly are you offering in exchange for her life, David? I faltered. What could I possibly offer? I had no money, no leverage, nothing. Before I could answer, Liam spoke up, his voice desperate. Take me instead. Everyone turned to look at him. He was still on the floor, his face bloodied from the scuffle, but his eyes were fierce. I was part of it too, Liam said. I helped her move the money. You want to make an example of someone? Use me. The leader raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Loyalty. That's rare. He glanced between Liam and Amelia, weighing his options. Then, with a sigh, he nodded. Fine. You want to play the martyr? Be my guest. Wait. Amelia screamed, rushing forward. No. You can't. The leader held up a hand, silencing her. This is what happens when people betray us, Amelia. Let this be a lesson to you. Before anyone could react, the man with the gun stepped forward, pressing the barrel to Liam's temple. Don't do this. I shouted, my voice raw. But it was too late. The sound of the gunshot was deafening, echoing through the room like a thunderclap. Amelia's scream tore through the air, and I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Liam's body slumped to the floor, lifeless. Blood pooled around him, staining the hardwood. The leader turned to us, his expression calm and unaffected, as if he had just swatted a fly. Clean this up, he said to his men, then looked directly at Amelia. You have 1 week to pay. After that, we come for you, and him. He gestured toward me before turning on his heel and walking out the door. His men followed, dragging Liam's body with them. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amelia collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood frozen, staring at the bloodstain that remained, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was life or death. And I had no idea how to protect us.